Hi everyone. This is our last learning target for this unit. So 1.3.5, writing and solving an inequality given a scenario. This is the last new thing, so we're going to have a test coming up soon. So for this learning target, we might have to flip back to 1.2.5 to look at those key words so we know which inequality symbol to use. The only difference is that instead of writing it, we need to write and solve. So the same steps as we did before. So if we look back here, those same steps, those same keywords. What we're doing now, we're just then solving it. So the first one says, Claire would like to buy a video game that costs $130. She has saved $48 so far and plans on saving $5 of her allowance each week. How many weeks will it be until she has enough money to buy the game? So one, we need to write an inequality to represent the scenario, and then determine the number of weeks it will take to buy the game. So this means to actually solve it. So we need to actually solve the inequality that we write. So she would like to buy a video game that costs $130. She has 48 saved so far and plans on saving $5 each week. How many weeks? So it tells us what variable to use for the number of weeks, which is really helpful. And so I'm going to start with my total, which is the 130. So I'm going to put that on the end. And if I look at this, I don't actually see a keyword that indicates which inequality symbol to use. So I'm going to have to think about this logically. If I want to buy a video game that's $130, I could have exactly 130, so that would work. So I do need the or equal to. I could not have less than 130 because then I can't buy it. So I need to be more than 130 or exactly 130. So I want this to be greater than or equal to 130. So far her starting point is the $48. That's what she's starting with already in her savings account, or already saved up. And she's adding on to that what she's saving each week. So we are going to add $5 per week. And so that's our inequality. This would be the 2.0 level. That's what we did for the last learning target. But now we actually need to solve it. So we did part one. We wrote the inequality. Now we need to actually figure out how many weeks. So I'm going to solve this. So I'm going to subtract 48 from both sides. So I need to do 130 minus 48, and I get 82. So I have 5w is greater than or equal to 82. My last step is to divide both sides by 5, so I get my variable alone. I am dividing by a positive number, so I do not flip my inequality symbol. And 82 divided by 5 ends up giving me a decimal. So I get w is greater than or equal to 16.4. So I have to interpret what that means. So we said w was the number of weeks. So that means the number of weeks has to be greater than or equal to 16.4. Well, it's weird to talk about weeks as a decimal, like 0.4 of a week. What is that? So for this, if we round down to 16 weeks, that wouldn't be enough. 16 weeks would mean that Claire does not have enough money because we need more than or equal to 16.4. And so we're going to write a sentence and we're going to say Claire needs to save for 17 weeks or more to afford the video game. Because if she gets $5 each week, if we said 16.5 weeks, it's not like she gets half of her allowance halfway through. So we have to round it up to the next whole number, which would be 17 weeks. The second example that we're going to go through is a little different. This one's fun. So this one says a taxi service charges a flat rate of $6 plus an additional 50 cents per mile. Uber charges a flat rate of $4 plus an additional 65 cents per mile. For how many miles is it cheaper to take an Uber? So for this one, we don't really have a set starting point change in total because we're actually comparing two different things. And so what I want to do is I want to set this up so that I have my taxi service on one side and I have Uber on the other because I'm comparing them. So if I want it to be where it's cheaper to take Uber, this is my clue for my inequality symbol. If it's cheaper to take Uber, that means my taxi would be more expensive. So in between them, I would have to have a greater than sign. This means my taxi costs more than Uber, which means Uber is cheaper. I don't want them to be equal. I want this one to be more expensive so that Uber is less expensive or cheaper than this one. So the alligator is eating the bigger number. So now underneath, I'm going to do my starting point and my change for my taxi and my starting point and my change for Uber, and I'm going to keep my inequality symbol. So for the taxi, I have a flat rate of $6 plus 50 cents per mile. So I'm going to say $6 plus 50 cents per mile, M. And over here, I'm going to say M equals miles. For Uber, they charge a flat rate of $4 plus an additional 65 cents per mile. So I'm going to keep my inequality symbol, and I have my $4 plus my 65 cents per mile. And I want to use the same variable because we're still talking about miles. We're comparing them. So this is my inequality. And now I can solve it, and I want to get all of my variables on one side, all of my constants on the other. So I'm going to subtract my 0.5 m from both sides. And so when I do that, I'm left with, these go away, I'm left with 6 is greater than 4 plus 0.15 m. Then I can subtract 4 on both sides, and I have 2 is greater than 0.15 m, and I am running out of room, but the last step is I want to divide both sides by 0.15, and so 2 divided by 0.15 gives me a decimal again. So I'm going to go up over here, and that gave me 13.3 repeating, and I have is greater than m. I did not flip my inequality symbol because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. However, this is harder for me to understand. I like to have my variable on the left, so I'm going to write my variable on the left with my 13.3 on the right. And when I do that, I want to make sure it stays the same meaning. And so in this one, the alligator is eating 13.3. So in this one, the alligator still has to be eating 13.3. So this right here is going to be my final answer. But I have to interpret what that means and write a sentence. So M is the number of miles. So it is cheaper to take an Uber when the number of miles is less than 13.3. So let's clean that up a little bit. So if we travel or drive less than 13.3 miles, it is cheaper to take an Uber. Okay, so if we're planning out a trip and I know that it's only 8 miles, I would hire Uber because Uber would be cheaper than the taxi service. If I'm traveling and it's going to be like 15 miles, 15 is more than 13.3, the taxi service would actually be cheaper. So this helps us know which company to go with to save the most money. So we did it.